One thing to keep in mind when you're working with a director, especially if you're just starting out, is that a director has sat through a ton of processes before, um, often more than you have. So something that seems insuperable to a writer when you're in the room might be totally handleable by a director. And we always have these problems in production. The design is off, something is tonally or stylistically off. And I would trust your director to be able to and not only anticipate, but handle things by looking at all components of production.
I think one key thing to hold on to when you're working with a director is to really be open to like who that director is and their experience and who they are as a person and their expertise and all these things that sort of make them so good at their job as well, and let that inform the work. So don't be afraid to like don't be too cagey with the play where it's like it has to just be my influence, like they're just making this production happen. I think it's totally okay and important to let people imprint onto the work and let that be part of sort of like the growth of the play, and not be too precious about that either, not with your own writing or with other things. I think the whole point is to be collaborative. I think holding on to that is important.
Okay, one key thing that I usually tell playwrights and my fellow playwrights to keep in mind while working with directors, and this might sound bad, but it's to choose your fights. And I don't mean that you mean working in a play means fighting all the time, but there are going to be disagreements. Of course, you're in a creative process. You're going to have disagreements. It means understanding where your director is coming from, having them understand where you're coming from, sometimes meeting in the middle, sometimes finding where the common ground is, but always asking yourself the most important question, the one that matters the most, which is putting all ego aside. Does this make the play better? If you answer that one, then the fight is over. So choose your fights.
I think one thing that I've learned about my own process when working with a director, especially on production, is just how transformative it can be to go from the script to a stage reading on music stands to an actual production where they have to embody everything that's been written. I think sometimes when I write, it's like, oh, it's so easy to write this on the page, and it's so beautifully sort of like gotten across in a reading that when actually actors have to do it and designers have to make it happen, it's like, oh, this is 100 cues, and oh, this like performance style is very jarring, and to actually embody. And so I think there's a lesson sort of like expecting things to change and shift regardless. Like no matter how confident you feel on one stage of the script, getting to the next stage of it will inherently bring change.
Working with great directors in production, I have learned to sit through that dread and humiliation of hearing these words out loud. As rehearsal process move forward, directors are so amazing at energetically controlling a space with design and acting to tell stories minute by minute that we feel like we agree upon. And with a director that you trust, I get through all of the sort of selfish humiliation of being a writer and can trust that the story that's unfolding in the room, even if in its clunkiest and most conflicted moments, is going to coalesce into something so exciting to watch.
Something I learned from working as a director, as a playwright, is that they're able to see my play in a way that I wasn't able to see necessarily on the page sometimes, because they are confronting the play with actors on stage, and I'm able to both understand the play better, see it in front of me, sometimes do revisions, go home, rework the play, and come back with different pages the next day. Why? Because they're able to show it to me, make it come alive, and then give me the opportunity to revise, to understand my own play better, and then obviously to grow with the play. So that's something that really, really helps.
I have learned so much about writing from working with directors, and probably my favorite thing as I continue to write plays is realizing how, when working with a great director, a play can be and should be an invitation to them. It helps if the play can, in its invention of world and its tone and environment, feels like an invitation for a director and the rest of your collaborators. Sometimes when I'm stuck on how specific to be with my language and how to establish what a world feels like, it is immensely helpful to remember that I'm actually providing an invitation to somebody who's going to be excited to be in a room together.